So hello everyone, welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. So today we're going to talk about the power of desires. Desires are a very strong part of illusion, a strong force that binds you to illusion. It's like that which makes an inmate feel precious, feel love, desire for his own prison cell. And like I covered this in a previous satsang, desires, they bind you strongly because they promise happiness. They promise to satisfy that which impels you and gives purpose to what you call life. Not just purpose, but the purpose of realization. So they are a very powerful force. Especially because they appear to be yours. They masquerade and show themselves like your will. They are yours, intimate. So it is you that wants that. And like I've explained previously, it's not the desire in itself, but the experience of happiness that the desire promises after its realization. But let us not mixture all of this. Desires are very strong and very difficult to let go. You never know how long you have been feeding them. They may appear as a random thought, for example, and as they get entertained by you, they start getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So strong that they can pop up in the next life. They can give birth to next lives and arise intensely, driving all of your time into it, life after life, life after life. So it's quite common to hear seekers of truth, or those who are trying to become one. In the beginning, as their previous sanskars put them in touch again with spiritual teachings, so they can catch up to the point where they left it before. It's quite common to listen, oh, but I still want to live this, and I still want to live that, and I still want to live that. And these are moments like it's almost every time in the spiritual quest where opposite directions appear to see how what you decide, what is more important to you. And the idea is, okay, so let me go and live these things first, then I dedicate myself. This is naive, of course. It doesn't work like this. And these desires, they only intend to grab your precious time and make you waste it. And as you waste time investing in living those desires, you are strengthening them, and in the next life they will become stronger. They will come stronger again. Time is precious for those who aspire intensely, because, well, it's what you can use. It's what you can use, what you have to use to achieve freedom, or whatever you set your mind into. But here is for seekers of truth. So for those who are dedicated, who are dedicating their lives completely to the quest for truth, not mingling in worldly environments with worldly goals and etc., they can see that it is quite difficult to maintain focus or the life of the process. It takes every resources, because those big desires for having a family, security, whatever, they have layers and layers, and they come in a life which is completely dedicated to the quest for truth, where you try all the time to establish the basis, to work on the basis for freedom. That these desires, these seeds of desires, they come and twist what you're doing. The desire to be important, the desire to be recognized, the desire to be loved. They stop being big investments, lifetime investments in a direction that you will reach this, and they become daily investments where you can grab all these things, and you can get all these things in little activities all the time. And as it twists your investments, life disappears, life of the process. You get distracted. So those who are completely dedicated, they see how difficult this is. And eventually, there's only being focused or distracted, or somewhere in between. More of distraction, less of focus, more of focus, less distraction. Nothing else. This is what means worldly goals and divine goals. It's about your focus. How are you spending your time? Because for the mind who is burdened with desires, time can be overwhelming. So distraction is a need. Because focus can be overwhelming. And it's something you have to work and work and work to conquer this stillness, this focus. And as you work this, you get mature to be able to sustain this silence, the intensity of silence, the intensity of time. Because when you get distracted, time flies. When you're focused, time stays still. Some of you will understand what this means. Time can be overwhelming. illusion, reality. If you're here, whatever that means, you're illusion bound. Either you are working and giving your time to be free from illusion, or you're entertaining them. And when you have this clear vision in either or, things begin to be more clear. The importance of time, how you are dedicating your time. And these are powerful forces, of course, but it's not really fair. It's not really unfair also. It is just a matter of belief. When these things get to extremes, where you really don't want it, you understand how strong they are. And they survive and they keep their power over you because you believe you are powerless before it. It relies on your fear. But also in your ability to justify it. There's nothing there that you cannot conquer. If you believe. So when you stop giving excuses, you can actually see things changing. There's also this idea that, okay, so in this life it's difficult, next life will be more easy. Well, why should it be like that? If you're getting overwhelmed this time, and you're not being able to do anything because you believe this power to be too much for you, what will you do different the next time? You think you just roll the dice and it can become better? Well, by that logic, it can become worse also. Sometimes it seems that those who are overwhelmed by desires and don't have the strength to come out of them, and this can take several shapes. It seems that they are really in a difficult spot and they, well, deserve compassion. They are entitled to compassion. Well, they certainly believe they do. But there's another aspect to it. You have everything you need now. All the strength you need. Everything is there. But the only way you can see it is if you trust it and you go through that which seems impossible. What drives life is going back to the source. Going back to the source is what you call happiness. Ultimate happiness. All desires promise ultimate happiness. But worldly desires, they promise in your world where you stand, they promise pleasure. And you tend to confuse pleasure with happiness because it feels good. And you know by now that not everything that makes you feel good is good, actually. And the majority of those good sensations will lead to a lot of suffering in the long run. For the beginner, whatever that means in the spiritual quest, spiritual practices and spiritual disciplines bring discomfort immediately. So they say it's not good. But in the long run, if they persist, spiritual practices also bring this feeling good. And it is less difficult for these good sensations to bring suffering, but it's not impossible. These are just side effects. But they have something in common with the other ones. All sorts of pleasure bring suffering if you get attached to it, and if you make that the goal of whatever you're doing. But eventually, all desires promise happiness. But only the desire for freedom can guarantee it. The others don't. It is one desire, apparently, against infinite desires. If you want to stand a chance, you have to look at your desires, apart from the desire for liberation, as the song of distraction. Those who practice intense meditation as an end in itself and not as a means for satisfying desires, but as the means to end all desires apart from liberation. They will be able to see, if motivations are in the right place, the nature of desires, of thoughts, that they are not yours, that they enter your mental space and then get entertained. So all in the spiritual community, or more or less almost everyone, likes to entertain these stories about reincarnation. And if we look at reincarnation, and if we take it to be so, so then why people come back and come back and come back again and again, again and again, again and again, again and again? Because if you looked at your beliefs, things would become more simple. Because you believe in reincarnation. So what is family? A parent? A son? A daughter? It is now. Was it before? Will it be tomorrow? Of course not. It is changing, or it can be. If you would really use what you know in the right way, without the romance and the bright lights, things would become more clear. It is distraction, only distraction, and more distraction. Watch how you love a fairy tale, how you dream about these things. In the spiritual community, they are always looking for this coincidence that makes things special and all of this. Same music, same distraction. Desires are not yours, and they are there for you to waste your time, to continue distracted. And you see how you're always trying to find purpose. But you know, when that purpose ends, enlightenment has to come. There's no way to maintain someone trapped if it has no interest whatsoever. Because it is your interest that binds you. And it doesn't continue infinitely. Well, because, well, you still have intelligence, but it takes a long time. It takes a long time. And words can be only words, but a seeker of truth is the one who puts the words to the test. And he sees by himself the value of every word. Yeah, even leaving it between, it's not good. Probably not, but not sure what you mean by that, if you want to improve that. So as the desire for liberation dawns in your mind, that means it is possible. But to make it possible, you have to focus all your time and energy into it. Like I said, even for those who are dedicating their lives to it, they have to struggle immensely with the forces of distraction. What to say of those who are still entertaining a lot of things at the same time? And if you're turning your back to wisdom, you are embracing suffering. Suffering ultimately releases you, but not the way that it is imagined. It is only when it becomes unbearable. And this unbearable has a lot of layers. It doesn't matter how big the desire is, how small it is. The more investments in worldly life, the bigger the distraction. Only the desire for liberation should be embraced. And there's a very interesting, smart conclusion that seekers of truth have arrived to in very early stages. All desires have to be abandoned. So the desire for liberation also has to be abandoned. So let me abandon that immediately, and I'll be free. Yes, you'll be free to continue your worldly desires. That is the only thing that comes from that. It's not the desire which is abandoned, the desire for liberation. It's by holding on to it, intensifying it. The strength that arises from it will force you to purify that which is not in the right place, and maturity to dawn. That would be a big explanation. But usually, understand this, body-mind complex tends to interpret everything according to its own survival. So these are fancy conclusions, but they are just more of the same. You should let go of all desires except the desire for liberation. All desires are rajasic in nature. Even the desire for liberation that comes with passion, greed, and a lot of disturbing characteristics. And these are the characteristics that get purified in the fire of meditation, in the steadiness all else is abandoned. Sometimes desires are unbearable to abandon because you have been feeding it for so long. It's like your life depended on it. But it doesn't matter how strong is the belief, it follows the same rules. And as you stop feeding it, it will decrease. But you have to deal with it consciously. There's no point in saying, okay, so I let go everything, focus entirely on my spiritual quest, spiritual practices, getting absorbed into the divine. There's no point in this. If by any chance you still are looking for those desires and being sad about not having them, all of this is feeding the desire in the same way. It takes time to become steady. But quest for happiness, for fullness, it's the only quest there is. It's the only name of the game. Either you're going to it or you're getting distracted from it. There's nothing else. Like they say, you come without anything and you leave with nothing. So everything you have been doing stays behind. Well, actually never existed, but that's a different story. So if you get nothing from that, that must not be the name of the game. All desires, all aspirations, they are the seduction from illusion, and they should be taken care of in the same way. Focusing in your quest for freedom and taking out of the way that which disturbs in some way and intensifying that which helps. Okay. So next satsang will be Saturday, 9 o'clock in the morning, UTC -3. Till then, reflect, use your time. Evaluate those desires. And if you can, let go of them and embrace the desire for freedom. That will guide you. And take this out of your mind, because if you really establish yourself in the context of liberation, a part of you secretly will try to transform that new context in a way to satisfy those worldly desires. And you have to keep on cutting them every day, because they can sprout in the majority of circumstances.